Close your eyes. And let's drift back to time itself. That strange, invisible rhythm you've danced to your entire life without ever truly understanding. It ticks and tocks around you, filling your calendar, your clocks, your wristwatches, your deadlines. But here's the first curveball. The present doesn't exist. Not really. Right now, this exact moment, has already slipped into the past by the time you try to name it. The brain takes about 80 milliseconds to process sensory information. That means by the time you perceive something, it's already happened. So the now you're clinging to, it's a ghost. The present is like that last little drop of shampoo in the bottle. Technically real, but practically unreachable. Scientists still argue whether there's such a thing as a universal present at all. In Einstein's theory of relativity, two people moving at different speeds will literally disagree about what is happening right now. For one person, a star explodes. For another, it hasn't happened yet, and both of them are right. Isn't that fun? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Think about this. Every moment is a snapshot stitched together in your brain like a flipbook. You're not experiencing the world in real time. You're experiencing an edited version, lagged slightly behind. It's like being on a video call with the universe. There's always a delay. And yet, your brain tricks you into feeling like it's all happening right now. This is called the specious present, a fancy term for the small window of time your mind groups together as now. It's not an instant, and it's not a stretch of time either. It's more like the blur between frames on a film reel. Some researchers say this blur lasts about 2 to 3 seconds, though your mileage may vary. There's a reason you can enjoy music, because your brain is capable of connecting notes across milliseconds and finding rhythm. That's the specious present at work, but it also means there's no razor-thin sliver of time where everything truly is. You're always riding a tiny wave behind the present, and the shore keeps moving. This isn't just science being weird for the sake of it. It has consequences. If the present is a construction, then so is your sense of control. Decisions you think you're making in the moment are actually being processed by systems that already started reacting milliseconds earlier. It's like your conscious mind is the commentator, not the player. And here's the cheeky part. If someone asks you to live in the moment, they're basically asking you to hang out in a place that doesn't exist. It's like trying to build a sandcastle on a wave. But don't worry, you're not alone in this temporal confusion. Philosophers have been screaming into the void about it for centuries. Saint Augustine, back in the 4th century, famously said, "What is time? If no one asks me, I know. But if I have to explain it, I don't." He would have made a great podcast guest. Even weirder. Some physicists believe the flow of time is entirely an illusion. According to a concept called block universe theory, the past, present, and future all coexist like different pages in a book. You're just reading them in order. But the book, it's already written. In this view, nothing is moving. Time isn't passing. You are. A lot of us imagine time like a river, flowing from the mountains of the past to the ocean of the future. But in modern physics, that river might be more like a frozen lake. You're the one skating across it, and the marks you leave behind don't mean the ice is moving. They just mean you were there. Now, before we tumble too far down the rabbit hole, let's get playful with this. Ever tried meditating? People often describe it as being present, but neurologically, meditation is less about locking into now and more about quieting the noise of memory and prediction. You're not catching the moment, you're loosening your grip on everything else. Of course, even that slippery now depends on your surroundings. Under stress, your brain compresses time. In boredom, it stretches like warm taffy. But we'll get into that more in the next section. For now, just notice how even thinking about time starts to distort your sense of it. You start wondering, was that a minute or an hour? And that's exactly the kind of gently disorienting question that helps lull you deeper into rest. So next time you glance at the clock, remember, it's lying to you, and so is your brain. Now is always just out of reach. But strangely, that's what makes it beautiful. You don't have to catch time to dance with it. Just drift in its rhythm, knowing that every second you're letting go is already gone. Time doesn't always feel like it should, does it? 1 hour stuck in traffic stretches into eternity, but an entire afternoon with a close friend can vanish in a blink. You swear only 15 minutes passed, but the sun's already dipping below the trees. What's going on? Your mind, it turns out, is not a reliable timekeeper. In fact, it's notoriously moody about time. How fast or slow time feels depends more on your emotions and focus than anything a clock could ever measure. Your internal sense of time isn't governed by ticking seconds, but by experience. Take boredom, that yawning stretch of nothingness when your brain has no stimulation, no novelty, no surprises. In that state, your mind constantly checks in. How long has it been? And every check feels like a drag. You're so aware of time that it slows down, like watching paint dry on an iceberg during a blizzard. But when you're deeply immersed, what psychologists call flow, your awareness of time nearly disappears. Hours pass like minutes. You forget to eat. You forget to blink. You've probably felt it while gaming, painting, coding, or falling down a Wikipedia rabbit hole at 2 a.m. In those moments, your internal clock gets overridden by something more primal: attention. So here's the trick. Your brain doesn't count time, it fills it. The fuller your experience, the shorter it feels in hindsight. A quiet day doing nothing can feel endless while it's happening. But later, it registers as a blur. Meanwhile, a packed vacation day with a dozen little adventures feels like a week in memory, even if it flew by in real time. This quirk even shows up in your body. When you're scared, your amygdala, the part of your brain that processes fear, kicks into overdrive. Your senses heighten, your heart races, and time seems to slow. People report seeing in slow motion during car crashes or near misses. But scientists have tested this. Turns out, your brain isn't slowing the world down. It's just storing more detail. Later, when you replay the memory, it seems longer because there's more stuff in it. Kind of like watching a high frame rate video. Same duration, more frames. So the emotional tint of a moment colors your perception of time. Sadness stretches it. Joy collapses it. Anxiety fragments it. That's why waiting for a text back can feel like an hour per second. But doom scrolling TikTok until 3 a.m. warps the night into 5 minutes. Scientists still argue whether your brain has a single central clock or multiple overlapping ones. Some tied to movement, others to memory, others still to internal rhythms like heartbeat or temperature. But they all agree on one thing. Time in your head is fuzzy, mushy, subjective, which means you are constantly time traveling in the weirdest way. Here's a cheeky experiment. Hold your breath and count to 20 in your mind, then check the clock. Was it really 20 seconds? Or more like 12 or 35? Your counting rhythm, fast, slow, panicked, relaxed, affects your sense of passing time. That's because part of your brain, likely the basal ganglia, links time perception to motor prediction. You're not just thinking the seconds, you're feeling them. This explains why time feels slower when you're moving cautiously and faster when you're rushing. Motion creates its own internal metronome. That's why dancing makes time fly, and waiting in line makes it congeal like cold oatmeal. You might have heard this one too. As we age, time feels faster. The theory: when you're a child, everything is new. Your brain logs a ton of detail. But as an adult, routines take over. The brain starts compressing familiar patterns. Days become indistinguishable. And just like that, whoosh, 5 years. So if you want life to feel longer, ironically, the trick isn't slowing down. It's doing new things, making memories, switching up your routines. Novelty adds thickness to time. But even novelty gets tricky. Ever been on a vacation where the trip felt long, but the memories of it feel short? That's the weird split between experience duration and remembered duration. Your brain keeps two separate books, and they rarely agree. There's also an odd fringe insight called chronoception that suggests your brain might sense time through subtle, unconscious cues, like fluctuations in temperature, metabolic rate, or even changes in your gut microbiome. No, really, you might literally be digesting your perception of time. And then there's this lovely paradox. If you try to be more aware of time passing, you often end up distorting it more. Like when you watch a countdown timer, and each second feels like a year. But if you ignore the clock, suddenly, it's lunchtime, and you're still in your pajamas. So remember, you're not bad at managing time. Time is bad at managing you. It slips and slides and stretches, all based on how you're feeling, what you're doing, and whether or not your stomach is growling. Clocks might be neat little boxes, but your experience of time is a watercolor, blurry at the edges, fluid in the middle, and always subject to interpretation. And the more you try to grasp it, the slipperier it gets. Maybe the trick isn't to control time, but to let it lose its grip on you. You've probably trusted clocks your whole life. They tell you when to wake up, when to eat, when to leave the house, when to say you're late. But here's the secret. Clocks lie. They don't tell you how life feels. They just count the mechanical beat of seconds like a little tyrant with a drum. The question is, are they even measuring the right thing? Mechanical clocks, wristwatches, wall clocks, the digital one blinking on your microwave, are based on predictable cycles. Pendulums swinging, quartz crystals vibrating, atomic particles wiggling just so. But those cycles have nothing to do with how you actually experience time. They just give us an illusion of control. They impose structure on what's essentially chaos. Now, before we ditch our calendars and run into the woods, let's acknowledge that clocks have their uses. Society needs synchronized structure. Otherwise, the 3 p.m. dentist appointment becomes a 3 p.m.-ish, maybe you show up kind of thing. Not ideal when there are drills involved. But here's the cheeky bit. If you took your trusty wristwatch and wore it on a rocket moving near the speed of light, time would slow down for you relative to people on Earth. This isn't sci-fi. It's Einstein's special relativity. The faster you move, the slower time flows. Two synchronized clocks, one stationary and one moving, will disagree when reunited, and both are right. So much for universal timekeeping. And then there's gravitational time dilation. The deeper you are in a gravity well, say on Earth's surface versus orbit, the slower your time runs compared to someone higher up. Yes, your head is aging slightly faster than your feet. You're a walking time gradient. Congratulations. Scientists still argue whether the ticking of a clock actually reflects any objective passage of time, or whether it's just a convenient fiction, a rhythm that helps us function, like a metronome in a song we never wrote. But even here on Earth, you and the clock have a rocky relationship. Jet lag is proof. You cross a few time zones and suddenly your body refuses to sleep when the clock says it's bedtime. Why? Because your internal clock, your circadian rhythm, doesn't care about the number on the wall. It's tuned to sunlight, melatonin, temperature, and mood. Your brain runs on what's called biological time, not mechanical time. And those two clocks rarely agree. It's why you might feel wide awake at 2 a.m., even though your alarm is set for 6. Or why you feel like the day is crawling at work, even when the clock insists it's only been 15 minutes. Clocks also mess with our perception of time in subtler ways. Ever checked the time and thought the second hand froze for a moment? That's not a glitch. It's called the stopped clock illusion. Your brain fills in the moment you shifted your eyes, creating the sensation that time stood still. It's like your mind hits the pause button just to catch up. And think about how time feels in different cultures. Some societies treat time as a rigid sequence, punctual, segmented, scheduled. Others treat it more fluidly, arriving around a certain hour, leaving when it feels right. Neither is wrong. They just reflect different relationships with the same ticking beast. Your idea of being on time isn't biological, it's cultural conditioning. Even the standard 24-hour day is a compromise. A solar day isn't exactly 24 hours. It's about 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds. The Earth's rotation is a little messy, so we invented leap seconds to occasionally patch our clocks. That's right, we fudge time to make it behave. We even invented time zones, slicing the planet into invisible wedges so everyone could pretend the sun rises at a reasonable hour. But those lines are arbitrary. You could stand with one foot in one time zone and the other in the next, being both early and late at once. Schrödinger's appointment. So here's a fun thought. What if clocks aren't measuring time, but just motion? They're counting regular movements, like gears turning or electrons oscillating. But time itself, that's still up for debate. Some physicists suggest it's not a thing that flows. It's just how we experience change. That would make a clock like a ruler trying to measure the wind. Useful, sure, but not the whole story. And just to make things weirder, there are theories in quantum mechanics suggesting that at the smallest scales, time might not even be smooth. It could be quantized like pixels on a screen. Tiny, indivisible ticks of time, no in between. But you'll never notice, because your brain runs on much fuzzier software. So maybe clocks don't lie maliciously. They just tell a very specific story, one that helps trains run on time and alarms go off before your meeting. But when it comes to how you feel time, when it stretches, contracts, freezes, or disappears, they're completely out of sync. The next time someone tells you to watch the clock, you might gently remind them, the clock isn't watching you. It doesn't know if you're happy, bored, grieving, or dreaming. It just ticks. And maybe, when you start to fall asleep, and you hear the soft tick of a wall clock in another room, it won't feel like a countdown anymore. Maybe it'll feel like a lullaby. You think your memories are tucked away like photos in an album, don't you? Clean, static, waiting to be flipped through. But they're not. Your past isn't a vault. It's a living script, rewritten every time you open it. And your brain? It's less of a historian and more of a playwright with a flair for creative edits. See, every time you remember something, you're not retrieving the original memory, you're reconstructing it, pulling pieces together, adding flavor, trimming edges, mixing in emotions, context, and even stray details from other events. Then you put it back on the shelf, not as it was, but as it felt this time. It's called reconsolidation, and it means your past is always slightly in flux. The act of remembering literally changes the memory, like a sandcastle that shifts every time you touch it, and the more you remember it, the more it mutates. Scientists still argue whether memories can ever be pure, or whether they're always subject to distortion, even in short-term recall. And the scary part? You rarely notice. You're confident your version is accurate. That's called memory confidence bias. You believe the version you've got because it feels real, but it's often just polished fiction. Your brain stores the gist of things better than the details. You might recall that you had coffee with your friend at a cafe last week, but whether it was Tuesday or Thursday, whether the barista had a mustache, whether it was raining or just cloudy, those things are negotiable. And if you guess wrong, your brain will cheerfully fill in the blanks without telling you. And it's not just the little stuff. Eyewitness testimony, long considered the gold standard in courtrooms, is now known to be deeply unreliable. People have clear memories of events that never happened. False memories can be planted with just a suggestion, especially if repeated. There are entire studies where people have remembered elaborate childhood experiences, vacations, injuries, pets that were entirely made up. You're not faulty, you're normal. The brain just isn't a tape recorder. It's a storyteller. And here's the kicker. Even your identity is built on this shaky scaffolding. You remember who you are by piecing together moments, choices, feelings, and stories. If those memories shift, so does your sense of self. You're not the person you remember. You're the person your brain remembers you remembering. There's a lovely fringe idea called autobiographical time drift, the tendency for memories to migrate in time. You might misplace events by months or years. That concert you swear happened when you were 16. Turns out it was at 19. But your brain reshuffles memories to fit your current self-image. It edits your life's playlist based on how you want the album to sound. And when trauma or deep emotion gets involved, memory gets even slipperier. Painful memories often feel frozen, sharp, too detailed. But even those can be reframed over time, softened, or fragmented. On the flip side, moments of deep joy can blur, melting into hazy warmth without clear shape. Time, in memory, bends to feeling, not sequence. There's even evidence that the mere act of describing a memory can alter it. Language forces structure, a beginning, a middle, an end. But memories aren't stories. They're flashes, scents, feelings, echoes. Turning them into words flattens them, sometimes changing their flavor entirely. So what does this mean for time? Simple. The past isn't fixed. It moves with you. Your timeline is less of a straight path and more of a garden of mirrors. Some memories are brighter, some are distorted, some are missing, and some, let's be honest, were probably just dreams. Here's a strange but comforting thought. When you lie in bed and remember that one awkward conversation you had in 2014, the other person involved, they might not remember it at all. or they remember it completely differently. Their version of time diverged from yours the moment it happened. So whose version is real? Time, after all, isn't just about clocks and calendars. It's about continuity. And continuity lives in memory. Your entire life feels like a flowing movie, but it's really a series of scenes cut together by an unreliable editor. There are jumps, rewinds, deleted scenes, and somehow you keep watching it as if it were seamless. This also explains nostalgia, that warm, glowing feeling for times that were probably harder, messier, more chaotic than you remember. But your brain filters them through a lens of safety. It edits out the rough parts, adds a golden hue, throws in a vintage soundtrack, and yet, every once in a while, your brain surprises you with a flash, a smell that throws you back 20 years, a song that reopens a wound, a phrase someone says that echoes your childhood bedroom. Time collapses just for a second. Past and present melt. It's like your brain forgets to keep things separated. The illusion of linear time falls apart. So if your memories are constantly changing, and your past is a moving target, what anchors you? Maybe nothing. Maybe that's okay. Maybe your story is supposed to evolve, to soften, to grow kinder as you do. The truth is, you've already changed your past, just by remembering it. And that version, that's the one you fall asleep to. There's a strange moment when you reach out for something, a cup, your phone, a doorknob, and you realize you've already moved before you even thought about it. It's like your body acted first and your mind only caught up after the fact. That's not a glitch. That's you. Or at least the version of you that lives milliseconds ahead of your consciousness. Your brain predicts the future first and asks questions later. You see, most of what you think of as now is already filtered, edited, and pre-approved by unconscious systems in your brain. Long before you decide to reach, to speak, to blink, something inside you has already fired the starting pistol. Take the famous Libet experiment. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet had participants move their fingers while watching a clock. He discovered that their brains showed signs of initiating the movement nearly half a second before they reported choosing to do it. That is, your brain decides before you do. Scientists still argue whether this undermines the idea of free will, or whether it just means your conscious self is the narrator, not the author. Either way, it's unsettling. You're more like a translator for your own brain's foreign language, pretending you wrote the sentence after it's already been said. This is part of a broader system called predictive processing. Your brain is constantly modeling the future, anticipating what will happen next, and quietly adjusting your behavior before you're aware anything has changed. It's like a chess player, always thinking 3 moves ahead, but sneakier. Even your senses are delayed. Your visual cortex takes about 100 milliseconds to process light from your eyes. Sound? Around 60 milliseconds. And yet, you perceive the world as synchronized. How? Your brain backdates everything, creating a seamless story. Like a film editor stitching together scenes to make it look smooth. You're not watching life in real time. You're watching a delayed highlight reel. And when those predictions go wrong, that's when things feel weird. Ever tripped while walking upstairs because you expected one more step? That wasn't clumsiness. That was your predictive model malfunctioning. Your brain sent signals based on what it thought was next. Reality didn't cooperate. This happens socially too. You pre-guess what someone's about to say. You prep your answer before they're done talking. Sometimes you're right. Other times, cue awkward silence. Your internal world runs slightly ahead of the external one, which is why, when something unexpected happens, like a jump scare or someone calling your name, you feel that jolt. Your prediction engine got ambushed. And here's the spooky bit. This predictive machinery means you often don't experience things as they are, but as your brain expects them to be. That weird déjà vu feeling might just be a glitch in prediction. Your brain thinks it's seen this moment before because the pattern feels familiar, even if it hasn't. Let's take it further. Athletes and musicians often describe being in the zone, reacting faster than they can think. They aren't thinking faster, they're anticipating better. Their brains have built super efficient prediction models that remove the need for conscious deliberation. They just move. And your body, it plays along. There are subconscious systems controlling everything from your posture to your pupil dilation, based on predictions. You flinch before something hits you. You duck before the branch even fully swings your way. You're always a little bit ahead of the moment. There's also a tiny brain structure called the cerebellum, which, among other things, helps time your movements down to milliseconds. It's constantly calculating where your limbs should be a split second from now, which means every graceful move you make, from catching a ball to typing this comment, is a forecast come true. And it's not just about movement. Emotion, too, has a predictive flavor. Your brain guesses how you should feel based on context, memory, even posture. That's why a song can make you feel nostalgic before the lyrics kick in, or why a scent can trigger sadness from a memory you haven't accessed in years. There's an eerie calm in this. Your future is being quietly constructed in the background, moment by moment, and you, sweet, sleepy you, are just floating through the waves of prediction, reacting to a reality your brain built before you got there. But here's where it gets even more playful. Some theorists think that consciousness itself is a kind of lagging summary, like the commentary on a sports match you're watching slightly after it happened. You're not living in the present. You're living in the brain's best guess about what just occurred. So what does that make yourself? A gentle hallucination? A story unfolding half a beat behind? Well, maybe. But maybe that's okay. Think about dreams. Those late-night movies your brain creates without any real input. Entire worlds spun out of prediction, memory, emotion. Maybe waking life isn't so different, just higher resolution. So tonight, as you lie still and notice the way your fingers twitch, or your breath catches, or a strange memory bubbles up for no reason at all, know that part of you is already ahead, already planning, already there. You're not just remembering time, you're forecasting it, living in echoes of what hasn't quite happened yet. Have you ever stared at a clock and watched the second hand tick and tick, only to feel like the first second lasted way longer than the rest? Like time stretched open and then quickly snapped back into rhythm. That's not in your head. Or rather, it is, but in the best way. Because the act of looking, of paying direct attention, can actually distort your sense of time. They call it the chronostasis illusion, and it's one of the brain's more mischievous tricks. When you glance quickly at a clock after shifting your gaze, your brain fills in the gap between eye movements by backdating the moment. It inserts extra time you didn't actually experience. It's a little like a film editor looping a few frames to keep the movie smooth. But in this case, you become convinced that the first tick of the second hand lasted too long. Scientists still argue whether this illusion is just a visual hiccup or part of a broader temporal recalibration system. Either way, it shows that observation, just noticing something, can alter your internal clock. Time stretches or contracts depending on what you're looking at and how intensely you're looking. It's kind of like quantum physics, but for your afternoon. And it doesn't stop with clocks. Think about how long a moment feels when you're fully in it. A kiss, a jump into cold water, the beat before a big announcement. These moments feel suspended, elongated. You're hyper-aware, so your brain lays down extra data. More data equals a longer perceived time. But then, there are moments that shrink under observation, like watching a loading bar, or waiting for tea to steep, or tapping your foot in a waiting room. You're monitoring time so intently that each second becomes an event, and those events blur into impatience. It's not that time slows, it's that your perception suffocates it. Attention turns time into taffy. It can stretch and snap depending on where your focus lands. Let's get a little strange. Studies show that when people are forced to make fast decisions, life or death ones, or even just quick reflex moves, the brain can process more information in less time. It doesn't actually speed up, but it feels that way because of how your attention is throttled. It's like switching to high frame rate mode. You get more mental snapshots in a shorter period. This might explain why time seems to slow during accidents or intense situations. It's not that the world is slowing, it's that you are speeding up. Here's a quirky detail. Even motion affects time perception. In one study, participants watched a moving object and a stationary one. They consistently said the moving object lasted longer, even when it didn't. Why? Because their attention tracked the motion, which fed more data to their timekeeping system. Basically, your brain links change to time. The more change it observes, movement, color, sound, complexity, the more time it thinks has passed. That's why staring at a wall feels endless, and watching a sunset feels brief but full. Now imagine applying that to your own thoughts. Ever noticed how introspective moments can feel like mini eternities? You sit down, stare into space, and wander through memories, worries, dreams. You emerge 10 minutes later, or was it 30? The inner eye distorts time even more than the outer one. And don't forget how expectation plays into this. Waiting for something you know is coming, like a text, an elevator, or the microwave to ding, can make seconds stretch unbearably. That's because you're in a heightened state of observation. You're checking, waiting, recalibrating constantly. Meanwhile, unexpected moments, like a surprise laugh or an unexpected hug, fly under the radar of your internal timekeeper. You weren't watching, so your brain didn't stretch them. Time becomes elastic in the gaze of your mind. The more you focus, the stranger it behaves. And here's the cosmic cherry. Some researchers suggest consciousness itself might be tied to how we experience time. The theory goes that we feel conscious because we're constantly stitching together little windows of time into a flowing stream. Without that sensation of movement through moments, we might not even feel awake. In this view, consciousness is the feeling of time flowing. But if that's true, then anything that messes with time messes with you. Let's return to our cheeky clock. If looking at a second hand can stretch a moment, what about looking inward? Meditators report losing all sense of time. Minutes become hours, or vanish altogether. Monks have sat in caves for what felt like an afternoon, only to find days have passed, or not enough time at all. When attention turns fully inward, time seems to dissolve. So maybe you don't need to have a slow down time. Maybe you just need to look at it differently, not chase it, not measure it, but feel its texture, its mood, the way it melts when you're still and sharpens when you're afraid. You felt it before, You're feeling it now. The seconds drip slower as you listen. The world softens. Thoughts rise gently and pass. Your attention, once scattered, now folds inward. And in this quiet space, time holds its breath. Imagine waking up one morning, not just groggy, but outside of time. You blink, stretch, and nothing feels sequential. The sun's position doesn't matter. Breakfast and dinner are the same vague concept. You don't even know how long you've been awake. For some creatures, that's not a nightmare. It's daily life. Because not every living thing experiences time the way you do. Some animals seem to float in a temporal fog, existing moment to moment, unbothered by the passage of minutes or hours. They aren't on the clock. In fact, for many of them, the clock might as well not exist. Let's start small. Flies. You've probably tried swatting one, right? And missed every time. That's because a fly's visual system processes images much faster than yours. To a fly, your hand doesn't move in a blur. It moves in slow motion. You're like a kaiju trying to slap a building. The fly simply bounces out of the way, casually. This difference in processing speed is called temporal resolution. It's how many snapshots of the world a brain can take per second. Humans process around 60 frames per second. But a fly? Closer to 250. To them, your fastest movement is still polite. Scientists still argue whether this slowed world means animals like flies actually feel time differently, or whether their brains just run on faster loops. Either way, they live in a world that moves differently. They may not experience boredom the way you do. They may not even remember what just happened 5 seconds ago. Take goldfish, for example. Long the punchline of memory jokes, but weirdly apt. Their short-term memory seems to last only a few seconds unless something is reinforced. Imagine that. Constantly forgetting what just happened, living in a permanent state of now and now and now. And then there are animals with almost no sense of now at all. Certain jellyfish don't even have brains, just nerve nets. No memory, no awareness. They respond to stimuli, light, touch, hunger, but they don't plan. They don't reflect. You could call them creatures of pure reaction. Time to them is probably just irrelevant. On the other end, there are animals that might experience deep time in a way we can't comprehend. Elephants are known to grieve their dead, revisit places from years ago, and carry emotional memories. Crows can recognize human faces for decades. Whales migrate along routes remembered from generations past. For these creatures, time isn't just lived, it's carried. Now consider animals that hibernate. Bears, frogs, even some turtles slow their metabolisms to the point where time practically stops. Their heart rates drop, their internal clocks dim, and months pass without awareness. When they wake, there's no feeling of time lost, just a continuation, like they pause the tape and press play again. There's also the case of animals that rely on light rather than clocks. Migratory birds navigate using the stars. Sea turtles find their way to nesting grounds with no calendars, no reminders. They don't schedule, yet they show up on time every time. You, in contrast, need 3 alarms, 2 reminders, and a panic attack to be on time for a Zoom call. Here's a fringe insight. Some neuroscientists think the experience of time might be tied directly to a creature's lifespan. A mayfly, which lives less than 24 hours, might perceive those hours as a full lifetime. To them, a minute could be a day. Time isn't fixed. It's scaled to the observer. So while your life may seem long compared to a gnat, Imagine how long your day would feel if it were packed with 100,000 moments of conscious awareness. Maybe the fly does get bored, just very, very quickly. But what about animals that communicate outside our timescales? Whales, for instance, can sing for hours, sending low-frequency sounds across entire oceans. Some of their songs evolve slowly over years. It's possible that part of their social bonding happens in a temporal space we can't fully perceive. We're too quick, too eager. We want punchlines. They might be telling stories that stretch across decades. Some species of turtles don't reach maturity for decades. Bowhead whales may live over 200 years. Think of that. A creature born before electricity was invented, still swimming today. What is time to a being like that? Meanwhile, insects born in the morning may not make it to sunset. And then there's you, caught in the middle. You think in schedules, routines, appointments. You've built your reality around the idea of time. But even so, your body sometimes slips into other rhythms. You lose track of time while walking in the woods. You drift during a long bath. You lie in bed listening to the rain and feel yourself exit the schedule. That's when you begin to experience time like an animal. Wordless, patterned, sensory. It's kind of freeing, isn't it? To know that time, this great and heavy structure, is actually just one possible framework, one lens among many. Some creatures skip time, some blur through it, some drift along without ever marking it at all. Maybe there's a part of you that can do the same, a quiet self that doesn't check the clock, that doesn't ask, what time is it? But rather, what does this moment feel like? And right now, as the hum of sleep pulls gently at your edges, the moment feels soft, open, unmeasured. Let it stay that way, just a little longer. Imagine trying to describe your life without using time. No before, no after, no yesterday, or next week. Just events floating in space. No sequence, no cause and effect. Just isolated facts. It sounds impossible, right? And yet, in the realm of physics, the most precise language we have to describe reality, time is becoming suspiciously optional. You've probably heard of Einstein's space-time, the elegant idea that time is just another dimension, like up or sideways. But what if I told you that some of the most powerful theories in modern physics don't include time at all? That's right. Time might not be fundamental. It might not even be real in the way you think it is. Take the Schrödinger equation from quantum mechanics. It's central to describing how particles behave. But strangely, the equation doesn't require a ticking clock. It predicts probability distributions, clouds of what might happen, without specifying when. The outcomes evolve, yes, but not necessarily through time as we know it. It's more like unfolding potential. Scientists still argue whether time is something the universe has or something the universe does. Maybe what we call time is just a trick of entropy, the tendency of systems to move from order to disorder. In this view, time isn't flowing forward. It's just that everything keeps getting messier. Your bedroom is a perfect example. Entropy increases, dishes pile up, hair clogs drains, ice melts. But none of these things move through time. They just change in one direction, toward randomness. That direction gives the illusion of time flowing forward. But take away entropy, the arrow of time disappears. There's a theory called the timeless universe, which suggests that all possible configurations of the universe exist simultaneously. Imagine them like individual photos scattered across a table. No slideshow, no sequence. Your experience of moving through time. That's just your consciousness jumping from one frame to the next, like flipping through a flip book of your own life. And in general relativity, time is so flexible, it's kind of rude. Gravity bends it, speed stretches it. Near a black hole, time slows dramatically for anything caught in its pull. Theoretically, if you got really close to a black hole, without getting spaghettified, you could watch the entire future of the universe happen in fast forward, while your own clock ticks just a few seconds. The math works. The brain, not so much. Even more unsettling. In quantum gravity, where physicists try to unite general relativity and quantum mechanics, some formulations remove time entirely. The Wheeler-DeWitt equation, for example, describes the whole universe with no mention of time. It's like a complete blueprint, frozen in possibility. So where does time go? Maybe time only shows up when you look at things from a human perspective. Maybe it's something that emerges when matter gets complex enough to have memory. In that case, time might not be a fundamental ingredient of the universe. It might be a product of observation. And if that's true, then your experience of time is not about the universe changing, but about you noticing that change. Here's a cheeky parallel. Think about color. Color isn't real, strictly speaking. It's just how your brain interprets different wavelengths of light. The world doesn't have color. It has energy. Your brain paints it in afterward. What if time is like that? There's even a fringe theory that says consciousness creates time, because the act of becoming aware necessarily implies a change. I was unaware. Now I am aware. Boom, time. No change, no awareness. No awareness, no time. And yet, despite all this, your day still has 24 hours. You still get hungry at lunch. Your phone still buzzes with reminders. Your calendar still owns your soul. How do we reconcile a timeless universe with a time-obsessed life? Maybe time is like a user interface. You know how your computer desktop has icons for files and folders. Those icons aren't the files themselves. They're just representations. Helpful, intuitive shortcuts, so you don't have to dig through code. Time might be the same. A tidy illusion that helps us navigate an otherwise incomprehensible reality. It works well enough, until you start poking holes in it, which you're doing now. You're starting to feel it, aren't you? That strange shift when you zoom out, and the past, present and future all seem less solid. When you realize that time might not be a river at all, but a lens. Something that changes shape depending on how you look through it. And here you are, peeking through that lens as it warps, flattens, and folds in on itself. Maybe the universe isn't ticking. Maybe you are. Maybe everything that's ever happened, or will happen, is already out there, waiting for you to notice it. Not later, not before. Just there. Now drift with that thought. Let go of the ticking, the schedules, the hours. You're floating in a reality that doesn't care what time it is. And somehow, that makes it feel even more timeless. You probably think of your body as responding to time, waking when the alarm goes off, yawning at midnight, digesting dinner in the evening. But what if it's the other way around? What if time is responding to you? Or more specifically, to the dozens of tiny clocks quietly ticking inside you? Because, strange as it sounds, you're full of clocks. Not just one in your brain, dozens scattered throughout your body. Some tick in your liver, some in your skin. Even your gut bacteria seem to know what time it is. These are called circadian rhythms, and they form your body's internal timekeeping system. The master clock lives in your brain, in a tiny area called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, if you'd like to keep your dignity. It's nestled just above the optic chiasm, close to your eyes, so it can detect light and help sync your body with the outside world. But your SCN isn't a lone conductor. It's more like the lead drummer in a band where everyone's banging their own pots and pans. Every organ, every cell keeps its own beat. Your liver has a rhythm for processing sugar. Your muscles have a rhythm for strength. Even your skin heals faster during the day than at night. And scientists still argue whether all these rhythms are entirely coordinated by the SCN, or whether peripheral clocks can run wild if left unchecked. The truth, it's both. Your body is a temporal democracy, with a strong suggestion from the brain, and plenty of local chaos. These internal clocks are tuned to about 24 hours, give or take. But without light to calibrate them, they can drift. In experiments where people live underground with no natural light, their rhythms go haywire. Sleep cycles lengthen or shrink. Hormones lose their usual ebb and flow. Even body temperature starts to cycle unpredictably, which means you don't follow time. You generate it. You're like a living watch, syncing to the sun when it's around and doing your best guesswork when it's not. Now let's talk hormones, the quiet timekeepers of mood and metabolism. Cortisol rises in the morning to help you wake up. Melatonin increases at night to lull you towards sleep. These aren't passive reactions, they're scheduled events. Your body anticipates the day before it begins. You're already chemically different before you even open your eyes. This is why jet lag hits so hard. It's not just your sleep schedule that's off. It's your hormones, your hunger cues, your digestion, your core temperature. Your internal clocks are shouting over each other, trying to figure out what time it is in Paris or Tokyo or wherever your confused suitcase has landed. And here's a lovely fringe insight. Your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria inside you, have their own circadian rhythms too. They multiply and digest and release chemicals on a schedule. Mess with your sleep, and you mess with them. It's like living with very opinionated roommates who hate red-eye flights. Even your body temperature follows a daily rhythm. It dips in the early morning hours, rises through the day, and peaks in the evening. This rhythm affects your focus, your reaction time, even your mood. That mid-afternoon slump, probably your core temperature dipping, not your third coffee failing you. And remember, your perception of time is tied to all of this. When your rhythms are aligned, time feels smooth, predictable. You flow through your day. But when they're off, time gets jagged. You feel slow, then fast, then lost. Like your internal drummer is out of sync with the band. There's even evidence that the time of day affects your memory, your creativity, even your moral decisions. Morning people tend to be more ethical in the morning. Night owls, reverse that. Your sense of right and wrong may literally be on a timer. So the next time you feel off, don't just ask what time it is. Ask what time your body thinks it is, because your brain isn't working alone. It's coordinating a full-blown symphony of ticking biological clocks. And if even one section misses its cue, your digestion, your sleep, your emotions, you feel it. Time suddenly gets weird. And yet, these rhythms are also what tether you to reality. They give your days shape. They help you sleep, wake, remember, forget, grow, heal. They are, in many ways, the most real version of time you've got. Clocks on the wall are helpful, but the clock inside your chest, that's the one that really matters. So as you drift now, your body knows what to do. Your temperature's dipping, your melatonin's rising, your organs are winding down their shifts. Deep within, the rhythms continue, soft and slow. Like the tide, you're a clock, you're a calendar, you're a system of whispers and pulses breathing through the night, and all of it perfectly on time. So after all this, clocks that lie, memories that bend, flies that see in slow motion, and physics that forgets time even exists, what are we left with? Maybe just this one final brain-scrambling thought. Time might be entirely fake, not just misunderstood, not just slippery, completely made up. Now hold on. That doesn't mean your meetings don't happen, or that dinner with your friend wasn't lovely, or that birthdays aren't worth celebrating. It just means the thing we call time, the linear, measurable, past, present, future highway we think we're driving on, might be a user-friendly illusion. And you're not alone in suspecting this. Philosophers, physicists, and the occasional mystic have all taken their turns peeking behind the curtain. From Kant to Carlo Rovelli, from ancient sages to modern theorists, the question keeps echoing. What if time is something the mind does, not something the universe has? Think about dreams for a moment. In a dream, time goes completely off script. You fall asleep for 20 minutes, and your dream self lives through an entire childhood. A road trip, a betrayal, a reconciliation, and maybe even a piano recital. Or nothing happens at all, and it still feels like forever. Your brain isn't tracking seconds in a dream. It's building a story. And time is part of the story's texture, woven in, not counted. That might be true of waking life too. Some physicists believe that time is emergent, not a fundamental part of the universe, but something that arises only under certain conditions, like temperature. Temperature doesn't exist in a single molecule. It emerges when many molecules jostle together in a system. Likewise, time may not exist at the tiniest scales, only becoming real when enough complexity arises to create change. And what do you need for change to feel like change? Memory. That's the heart of one theory. Time might just be the mental stitching together of memories. You remember event A, then event B. The mind strings them into a line. But outside your mind, maybe there's no line at all. Just a vast web of states. And you, sweet, storytelling you, are surfing through them. Scientists still argue whether this makes time an illusion in the strictest sense, or just a very convincing interface. But either way, it casts doubt on the idea that time flows. Maybe it doesn't flow. Maybe it doesn't even tick. Maybe it just is. Now take that one step further. If time is a mind-made thing, then you have more power over it than you thought. Your emotions can stretch it. Your memories can revise it. Your attention can speed it up or slow it down. You're not trapped in time. You're creating it, moment by moment. That's why meditation slows everything down. Why falling in love can feel like entering a bubble outside the clock. Why trauma warps the timeline and joy shrinks hours into seconds. Time bends to meaning, not the other way around. And once you see that, you start to notice how artificial so much of our timekeeping really is. A week? Just a human invention. Nowhere in the universe is there a 7-day rhythm. We chose it. We named it. The same goes for hours, months, even years, depending on which calendar you use. The ancient Romans had 10 months. Some cultures used moon cycles. Leap years are us correcting ourselves. Again, your whole life is structured around measurements that don't exist outside human imagination. And yet, they run your schedule. Isn't that wild? But maybe that's the gift of it. If time is something we made up, maybe we can make up new ways to use it. Maybe time is less like a prison and more like clay. something soft, malleable, personal. Maybe you don't have to manage your time. Maybe you just have to notice it, feel it, let it breathe. And maybe on nights like this, when the world is quiet and your thoughts drift like vapor, you realize that time doesn't always need to move forward. It can spiral, fold, loop. It can rest. So take this moment, right now, not as a point in a timeline, but as its own little eternity. No countdown, no rush, just here. Because if time is an illusion, this moment is yours to shape. And now, the clocks can rest. Let the ticking fade into the distance, like footsteps on soft grass. There's nothing left to keep track of. No more past to hold, no future to reach for. Just the warmth of now. Let your breath slow, your thoughts quiet, your body settle into rhythm. Time, real or not, can wait. You're exactly where you need to be. Floating, drifting, whole. Sleep doesn't ask what hour it is. It only asks if you're ready. So close your eyes and let the rest dissolve. Sweet dreams.